Israel and Iran. First of all, today is June the 17th. It's an important day here in Boston. It's the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill, and that was the first major battle of the American Revolutionary War. Alrighty, so let's focus a bit on Israel. There is two things to understand about this war and the United States, and that is that the United States will unequivocally back Israel, regardless of anything else that's in this universe happening at that time. The reason the government backs Israel is one reason, and the reason the people back Israel is a different reason altogether. So I will tell you why the people back Israel. There's about 70 million fundamentalist Christians in this country, and sometimes they're referred to as Bible thumpers or whatever, but they hold their faith quite dearly. Back in 1908, there was a version of the Bible printed. It is referred to as the Scofield, Scofield Bible. In olden times, the Bible was just printed and written as the words were, with no really attempt to explain them whatsoever. A minister or whatever would explain them, or common sense would explain them, etc. This fellow Schofield, he was a bit of a shyster anyway, and he will produce a Bible that will have explanations and interpretations added to the Bible so that the common person would understand, supposedly, what the text really meant. So he will take a simple enough quotation from the Bible from Genesis. It is where God is going to bless the descendants of Abraham, and he will curse anybody that will go against the descendants of Abraham. Okay, it's simple. I will bless those that bless thee, and I will curse those that will curse thee, or very similar to those words depending on the Bible. Anyway, he will have taken this quotation and he will add his own explanation to it and have it explained that instead of God dealing with the descendants of Abraham, it is actually referred to as nations against the nation of Israel. And of course, that changes every single thing about it. It will be later amended in 1982 um, to say that a nation that goes against Israel is cursed. So this, in effect, has been promoted, and it is almost like a brand new commandment. Okay, so these people will say Israel is God's chosen people. Well, the Israelites might be God's chosen people, but now it means that this country of Israel is God's chosen country. And if you go against Israel, you are cursed. And that is why those people will support Israel above and beyond all else. Now, of course, the people that are not of their mindset, that is totally crazy. We have people in this country that believe Donald Trump ran on the motto of America first. That is actually not reality in the United States at all. Each and every administration is. It is Israel first, America down the line. Same with a lot of different countries as well. Now, there might be a more sinister reason why the government of the United States would support Israel. And that has to do with perhaps going back to Kennedy or whatever. Fellow that really benefited from the death of Kennedy, of course, was Lyndon B. Johnson, who became president. He will then have a commission to investigate the assassination, and that is the Warren Commission, which is a complete cover up, of course, and it's easy enough to see that in hindsight. Takes a lot of willpower to accept reality, though, to an American patriot, that it could be anything different from what the official story was. Very important incident then occurred some years later. It was the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty. Very briefly, it was where some jets with their insignias camouflaged out attacked an American reconnaissance, basically a spy ship in the eastern Mediterranean. The intention was to sink that ship and bring the United States into the war because they were going to pretend it was sank by the Egyptians. That was during the 67 war, of course. Now, it turned out that when that attack failed by a naval aircraft carrier that was sending jets um, to save the ship, in essence, the admiral that was on that ship, of course, immediately dispatched the jets, and they were going to take care of whatever aircraft. It didn't make any difference to him what aircraft they were. They could be Russians, they could be Arabs, they could be um, Greek that had made a mistake. It didn't make any difference. There was an American ship under attack, and his duty was to repel that attack. As the American jets flew east, he got a call from the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara. He couldn't believe his ears, so he paused at what he was being told to do. What he was being told to do was to recall those American jets that was going to rescue the servicemen on the ship, etc. Anyway, the President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson, came on and he says he ordered them to recall those jets because he wanted the American ship sank. Now, that is the fact of it. From that point on, of course, the Israelis would have control over a lot of American presidents and politicians and everything because they had the goodies on them. It's as simple as that. Because American patriots, if that was known to regular Americans, nobody would be serving their country because it's obviously a farce. Anyway, that brings us up to today. There is a number of great lies being told from this war from start to finish. The first one was that Donald Trump was not aware of this action about to take place at all. Anybody that believes that is just beyond. Forget about those things. Of course, Donald Trump knows about everything because the intelligence needed for this major attack would have to be relayed through satellites and etc. Also, that there's very small casualties involved. That too is ridiculous to believe. There's actually large casualties involved because these are big bombs and they are dropping and they are killing, and it's as simple as that. The only one bit of truth that I've heard in many commentaries I've heard was that this plan is 25 years in the making. Well, now that is certainly incredible because we know that if you go back to 25 years ago, it's 2020. Uh, an American general, Leslie Clark, came across a memo. Well, it was went through his desk because he's a general, of course. The plan was to eliminate seven countries that just happened to be enemies and dangers to Israel. They were Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Libya, and Syria, of course. And the last one I knew was going to be Iran. So Iran would have known this attack was coming, but yet they were caught flat footed because they were sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. Where the war is today, well, when the war broke out, the Israelis are going to send their biggest blow that they can. And of course, it was an exceedingly big blow. It was well planned and it devastated Iran, but it didn't knock them out. The focus of Israel from that point would be two things. One, there's only two ways they can succeed. One is if the government of Iran just collapses. They would have hoped to have that achieved by now. It remains to be seen whether the government of Iran will collapse. Normally, I would say no, but we have all seen what happened to Syria. It folded up like a cheap suit, as the old saying goes, and that was the end of that. The same thing could happen to Iran, but I suspect they are made of slightly more stern stuff. The other big hope, of course, was that the Iranians would attack oil facilities, or more importantly, military outposts and fortifications, etc., belonging or run by the United States. That, of course, would be the excuse to bring the United States directly into the war, because using conventional means, it is going to be almost impossible for Israel to defeat Iran. They must need more logistics and, well, they must need more firepower. They actually must need the United States coming into the war. Over the first few days, the Israelis would have expended quite their best munitions and perhaps even more importantly, their best defensive capabilities with their Iron Dome and their slings and this, that, and the other. They are now running low. So we are seeing the United States having to come into the war without the valid excuse for coming into the war, because the Iranians did not attack American military outposts. And that is where we are at the moment. So I expect in the next 2 to 3 days, should the Iranians survive the next 2 or 3 days, then the clock is ticking, and the advantage will be going to the Iranians, and that is where we get into a serious situation, because at that stage Israel will be fighting for its very existence, and it will certainly resort to nuclear weapons. That is what's known as the Solomon option. They will not go down without bringing as many as they can with them. Now, it just might happen that the Iranians will, uh, the regime will collapse. You will see massive propaganda and all sorts of reports that Khamenei has fled to any place on earth except from where he is, but most likely to Moscow. Take all those things with a grain of salt. Now, we do not know what's going to happen, but the next 2 to 3 days will tell the tale. And I will be back in 2 or 3 days' time on this subject to give you my opinion of it. But that is just an introduction as to why the United States will support Israel come hell or high water. And anybody that thinks different is just not dealing with reality whatsoever. And all this talk about America first, the people that was accepting that will have to chew on it and understand that that is not the situation. I believe Tucker Carlson, I have not watched the interview yet, but I'm looking forward to it because he's talking to Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a serious man indeed, and Tucker is not happy, and he believes that Trump is now done and dusted. If that is the case, well, Tucker was living in somewhat of a bubble, because this was obviously going to be the case from day one. All right, thank you for watching, and God bless.